for joining us and sharing that insight from London. Now we move on. We have a breaking news. A severe rainstorm has killed at least 9 people in Ukraine's Odesa, including a child, according to emergency services. The mayor of Odesa has said that in 7 hours, Odesa has received almost a 2-month norm of rainfall in just 7 hours, and that no storm sewer system could withstand it. Now we move on to our next news. A Russian-guided aerial bomb attack on the northeastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv overnight has injured 6 people and sparked several fires, according to regional officials. Odesa Rainstorm, governor of the broader Kharkiv region, has said that 5 of those injured have been hospitalized. Moreover, Ihor Terekhov, mayor of Kharkiv, has said that the attack also sparked a fire at one of the city's markets and set at some residential buildings as well. Meanwhile, Russian local media citing Russia's defense ministry has stated that Russian air defense units have destroyed 20 Ukrainian drones overnight. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Gilbert Doctorow. He's an international relations and Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Thank you very much, Doctorow, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, what more can you tell us about this ongoing situation with Ukraine and Russia's war?
Well, what you just described, the attacks on Kharkiv and Odesa, demonstrate that Russia is setting out the next areas which it will progress its troops and take territory. The main fighting is going on in the Donbass and Donetsk region or province, but these 2 areas, Kharkov in the northeast and Odesa in the southwest, are also in Russian sights for expanding its control of Ukrainian territory. What we're seeing in these missile and drone attacks is part of this softening up operation. It's preparing the way for eventual Russian troop movements.
And what more do you think can international community do to balance immediate humanitarian aid and diplomatic efforts to de-escalate this situation between Russia and Ukraine?
I think it's more likely that events will go in the opposite direction in the coming weeks, not towards de-escalation, but towards escalation. The talk about America supplying Tomahawk cruise missiles to Mr. Zelensky is part of this escalation that we may see played out very shortly. It is usually portrayed as Mr. Trump's tilt towards Ukraine and providing them with the wherewithal to strike deep into Russia. But I don't think that is what is happening at all. I think this all is effectively an attempt to pressure Mr. Putin by Donald Trump to end the war quickly, and to end the war not by capitulation, but by destroying Ukraine's decision-making centers. That is a decapitation strike.
And now you've mentioned that it can escalate. So what role can international institutions like the UN or IAEA play in mitigating the risks posed by ongoing hostilities, especially near nuclear facilities?
Well, as regards nuclear facilities, of course, the United Nations watchdog follows very closely what's going on around the Zaporozhye nuclear facility, for example, which the Ukrainians have in the last 2 days once again called attention to, because it is a vulnerable point in the Russian occupation of eastern Ukraine, and they want to apply pressure to the Russians by indicating that they can attack it and cause vast radioactive damage. As regards other international institutions, I think they can only be bystanders. The big play now is between Russia, the EU, and the United States.
Thank you for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you. And now we stay on this topic. U.S. President Donald Trump's envoy, Keith Kellogg, has floated the possibility of long-range strikes by Ukraine against Russia with American weapons following the administration's recent pivot on the conflict. In a televised interview, Kellogg was asked whether President Trump had authorized strikes deep into Russian territory days after Moscow was accused of sending fighter jets and drones that violated the airspace of several European nations, which Russia denies. Now have a look at what he has said.
I don't know if his generals are telling him the truth or not, but he cannot overpower NATO. He cannot overpower the West. He just can't. He does not have the capacity to do it. I have talked to senior leaders in Washington, D.C., and I've been asked that very question. Can Russia win this war? I said, no, they can't. They do not have the capability to win the war after 3 years.
Now for this discussion, we go back to Gilbert Doctorow. He's an international relations and Russian affairs expert. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now looking at this news coming in, and you've already mentioned a little bit about this in our earlier discussion, do you think U.S. can still be a mediator between Russia and Ukraine? And why do you think U.S. is now leaning towards Ukraine?
Well, I think the United States has abandoned the role of mediator. Instead, it is trying to prompt the Russians to do what it has to do to end the war very quickly. In that regard, you have statements, but not only by General Kellogg, but also by Vice President Vance, who spoke yesterday with reporters and issued his own line of taunts against Russia, saying that their economy is a shambles, it's falling apart, that all of these attempts to advance their armies is being frustrated, that they're not making significant advances, that thousands of people are dying each week for nothing. So that is the latest position of the Trump administration. Mr. Trump himself has said similar things when he spoke to the 800 generals assembled in the suburbs of Washington a day ago. And what is this all about? It's not a tilt towards Ukraine. It is a stick being used to taunt and prompt the Russians to do something to end the war quickly and not to drag it out, as Mr. Putin's war of attrition policy is doing.
And in what ways could this war of Ukraine and Russia reshape, or is already reshaping, regional security architectures in Europe, especially in terms of nuclear safety, energy policy, military preparedness?
What effect has this latest approach by the Trump administration to the war had on Russia itself? Following Russian media very closely, I see a big change. The policy of turning the other cheek, of not responding immediately to the West's crossing Russia's red lines, is now being every day denounced on Russian television. Now, whose policy is that? It's Mr. Putin's policy. So in effect, Russian state television is issuing daily now very strong criticism of the policy of conducting the war that has been shaped by their president. So one of two things is about to happen. Either Mr. Putin will be replaced, be pushed out of office, or Mr. Putin himself is changing his policy from this slow war of attrition to a decapitation strike. Now, this is the answer to Mr. Kellogg. Russia can perfectly well destroy Ukraine at any moment of its choosing. Mr. Putin has refrained from doing that because he's behaving like a lawyer and not by a military commander. If he changes his policy, and tomorrow they send the Rechniks to Bankovskaya Street in downtown Kiev and wipe out the administrators and the person of Mr. Zelensky by bombing, then the war will end in a couple of days. That is where we stand today.
With that, I would like to thank Gilbert Doctorow for joining us from Brussels and sharing